Good evening, everyone. This is the Human Services Committee. It's Monday, August 7th. It's 6:12. I'm sorry I was late. Keep you all waiting, but we'll get busy. There is a quorum, and the first item on our agenda is approval of the meeting minutes of July 10th. Is there a motion to approve? Any changes? Okay, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll go on to items for consideration. And there are no items for consideration, okay? So items for discussion. The first is HH1, Police Issues Work Plan Update. We've got a number of people who are signed up to speak, so we'll take citizen comment first. Everyone will have 3 minutes to speak. The first person who has signed up is Karen Courtwright, and then Alice Berry, then Betty Esther, and Priscilla Giles.
Hi, good evening. Tonight I have a short story to share about a 12-year-old friend of mine who was riding on the pegs of his friend's BMX bike while another friend was riding on the handlebars. Yes, 3 kids on a bike is a cause for anyone to call for safer behavior, but in this case, the riders were not given a talking to during a teachable moment, but were arrested by the Evanston police. Arrested, 12-year-olds, for hanging around downtown and goofing off as middle schoolers will. The riders, not the kid pedaling, were placed in a paddy wagon, a metal box, without being able to call their parents, taken to the station. You will hear more about this in due course of a formal complaint, I imagine. So I'm going to switch gears and offer the perspective of an angry and very frustrated citizen. Oh, and surely you don't need for me to tell you what color these children were, do you? Here is an opinion piece from NPR Code Switch, a series about race and identity. I have a copy I'll leave with each of you. The criminal defense lawyers who authored this piece point out that when mistrust and alienation from the police begins at such a young age, it is harmful regardless of the outcome of any specific incident. These attitudes will harden as Black youngsters become Black teenagers and adults and are constantly stopped for being who they are. And we should not then be surprised at a lack of trusting and engaged relationship with the police. When we start criminalizing normal behavior at 12 years of age, we reap what we have sown. We desperately need high quality and in-depth training of police officers who interact with the citizens of this city to understand implicit bias. Because certainly most, if not all, EPD officers are good folk, but just as surely are the victims of our white supremacy culture and the unfortunate over-militarized police training they receive. These officers need to be trained until they develop actual empathy for the citizenry they serve. They need to be trained to talk with young people rather than grab them by the arm and take them into custody. We all know that Black children are seen as older and more aggressive than their white counterparts, and these implicit biases absolutely do contribute to the racial patterns of police contacts and arrests we see here in Evanston. Until you, the Human Services Committee, the city, and the police, every single one of them, understands this, it's foolish to talk about simply improving our police complaint process.
Karen, your time is up.
Here's the remainder of my comments.
Okay, thank you. We'll put them in the record. Alice Berry?
I'm Alice Berry. I live at 1630 Main Street. After hearing about the incident that you've just heard described by Karen Courtwright, I have some questions. I have some statistics that Opal got from EPD showing the number of juveniles arrested in Evanston during 2016 by race. But I don't know the age of these kids, or their gender, or what they were arrested for. Have there been kids even younger than 12 arrested in Evanston? And what were they arrested for? I think we need statistics from EPD specifying the race, age, and gender of each child and the charges on which they were arrested. Because I think if there is bias influencing the arrests of juveniles, the statistics can help us isolate and respond to it. Second, what do the statistics show about white kids getting arrested on similar charges to what happened here? If the number of white kids is disproportionately low, then I think we're talking about implicit bias playing a role in arrests. And if so, can EPD admit to the role that bias is playing so we can have a serious discussion about that and do what needs to be done? Third, what is the policy that governs incidents like this, and was it followed in this case? I took the Citizens Police Academy course last year. Looking through my notes on the presentation about juveniles, which I remember being an excellent presentation, it appears to have been mostly about incidents at ETHS and school resource officers. I don't know at what point a police officer talking with a juvenile decides that the behavior is criminal, warranting an arrest, versus the stuff that kids do sometimes. Is it policy to connect and de-escalate so that the incident becomes a teachable moment instead of an arrest? I don't think anyone here would question that an arrest is a traumatic experience for a young person, and that an arrest should be avoided if at all possible. Finally, in thinking about this, it's hard for me to forget the worst kind of police-juvenile interaction involving another 12-year-old boy, Tamir Rice, who was shot on a playground because he was viewed as an adult-level threat by the police officer who killed him. What assurance will EPD give to me and to Evanston's Black community that it's doing everything that can be done to make sure that no Black child is ever killed by an Evanston police officer? I think some communities don't start to wake up to dangers like that until something horrible happens. Can we please wake up now before it ever does? Thank you.
Thank you. Betty?
Good evening. The incident that is being discussed, that Karen brought, that Alice brought, that is what the Citizens Network of Protection, that is the thing that our proposal is putting forth to address. We are not that much and that overly concerned as been stated with the complaint process. The complaint process does need work, but what we are concerned with in the Citizen Network of Protection and in the proposal that we drafted and have given to the community on June the 24th, focus on the service that we get from the Evanston Police Department, the handling of cases and incident by the Evanston Police Department. There are the cases and there are ways and things that things should happen. We do not know or have we seen all of the policies that address juveniles. They used to have one about the curfew. If you broke the curfew, the Black kids went to the police department. The white kids stayed in front of the theater and wait for their parents. That went on for years. We talked and talked, and finally we thought that had been addressed and put aside, but it seems to be creeping back. That is why we need the oversight committee, because when you think that you have taken care of the issue and it's no longer an issue in our community, the next thing we know, it's back. Boys on a bike, what was the crime? that those kids was charged with. That is not a felony, probably not a misdemeanor. I have seen kids ride on top of bikes and everything, and when I was younger and braver and stupider, not knowing that I could kill myself, I did that. But I was not arrested. And this really is the first time, if you go and search on the internet to say how many times have a 12-year-old child riding on handlebars was arrested by police. I will look that up and we will put it out there. And probably the only people that will have that is Evanston. Like we talked about the issue of with the complaints. We still working on that to not to have the person's license number on the complaint.
Ms.
For
Esther,
what
your
reason?
time's
Thank
up.
you. So, clearly want you to understand the Citizen Network of Protection proposal is not just concerned with the complaint process, which is what the city is looking at, what was mandated at your February meeting. And it states that in your package today. Thank you.
Priscilla Giles?
She just came in.
I'm sorry?
My name is Priscilla Giles, and I am speaking in favor of the same issue that Betty Esther is the police. We need a police review board that is separate from the city, separate from the police department. And when I spoke with the mayor, he said that the reason that this new one is overriding the first one that Betty had was because there were some things, some items that she didn't have, but all of her things were in order. If that needed to have been checked, then that should have been checked with her, not a new committee begun without any talking with her. I never saw anyone at any of the meetings. I didn't go to every single one, but I never saw any of the people who are on this new committee at that in any of those meetings. I just think that we are overlooking a large number of people in Evanston.
Is there anyone else who wanted to speak on? Okay, Madeline? We're on HH1 now, and then we'll go to HH2. Oh, we're on HH1, the police issues and work plan. So that's,
Do you want me to speak later?
no, I'd like you to speak as often as you'd like.
It's open. Okay, Madeline Ducree. I'm out of breath. I walk from home. My grandchildren put my bike on the flat. But anyway, okay, I'd like to speak about 2 or 3 things. First thing is West Branch Library. I'm still waiting on the West Branch Library, okay? Robert Crown over there, we need one here. And I'm speaking fast. Okay, so I also want to speak about the drugs, the overdose. And I hate to say it this way, but I have to. Simply speaking, the rich people get help, the poor people are dying, going to jail or whatever for drugs out here, okay? Not fair, not fair. The last one, real quick, is the sanctuary city. I'm hoping that this council do not follow suit like Chicago is, okay, with the mayor there. I don't understand it. I really don't. Let me give you a quick scenario here. I went on a cruise trip in July, okay? I could not enter any one of those countries without a passport, okay? Or either a birth certificate and some lots of IDs, if that. I had to have some kind of official paper to get over there. And Jamaica, Mexico, and I suppose if you have to ride the plane, you definitely have to have a passport. Now, it was my mistake, my fault, waiting to the last minute. Thank God for those 2 young women who helped me in that clerk's office, okay? And then I had a problem because I had one that was way back and didn't have a stamp on it. So let me tell you all something. We're not being fair to the people here in America. I don't have no problem. I do not want to split up families. That is not my goal. But I want you all to know we are breaking the law. No, not me. That's your responsibility. You all vote that in. That's your responsibility. You broke the law. Now, the mayor is sending it to the Supreme Court. Why are we wasting money, taxpayer money like that, when we're trying to find out how in the heck we're going to pay our taxes? Because some people voted for the District 65, which I did not. We must take care of the people in this country, my country too. I see many times that our children, and I'm tired. I've been on that cruise because I had to go on there because of the fear of water, that big ship surrounded by water, okay? But guess what? I'm almost there, and I want to go back. I saw a good comedian there too, by the way. Mark Simmons, by the way. But anyway, that's another story. But let me tell you something. We have got to start doing the right thing for the people here in America, okay? Children are going to jail for nothing. We have CNP here trying to get something to straighten out. Hopefully we can work with the police. I am speaking tonight for the Colored Network for Equality and Fairness, because that's what we need in this town.
Madeline,
Okay?
your 3 minutes are up.
The 3 minutes are up, okay. But I just want to touch on these things. I'm going to be more vocal. One of my fears is over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so anyone else want to speak on HH1? Okay, then we'll turn it over to discussion from the committee. Anyone on the committee have any comments? Alderman Ruth Simmons?
I'll pass.
Okay, and anyone else? Is there any other discussion? Okay, then we'll.
I guess I'll just make a quick note to share with the members of the community who spoke that the incident that was brought up is currently under investigation. The chief of police is on vacation, and as soon as he gets back, there will be a meeting with the chief and the family to dig deeper into the situation. So I'm sure for myself, members of the committee, we appreciate the concern that was raised. We also, I'll speak for myself, probably others are concerned anytime you hear about a 12-year-old, any resident being arrested for riding on a bike. So at the proper time after we've done an investigation, we will have information to share publicly. Thank you.
Alderman Fleming?
And also to echo that, particularly to speak to the comments about the police information, just so we can be clear that I can follow up with the chief and the police force about getting those demographics broken down, and can communicate that probably at our next meeting for those who are interested, just because I want there to be transparency, but I also want you to understand the timeline. So we will meet again, and we can have that information for you regarding, given it's a juvenile, regarding whatever we can provide with our juvenile cases.
Alderman Braithwaite?
Thank you, Chair. And I guess for DC Pickett, I don't have the information in front of me now, and I'm not going to wing it, but I did have a chance to look at the statute that was listed on the arrest record. And so in reading through that statute, I didn't see anything in terms of the penalties that would allow me to believe from just reading it that an arrest was one of the options. It listed letters, penalties, nowhere in it for a kid that was, I think, less than 17 is there arrest. I don't know if you want to speak to it now.
Well, you know what, since it's on an investigation, I'd rather the investigation take place, the meeting with the chief of police take place, and then we can commence with our investigation.
Perfect. And then when you come back, can we look at what the definition of that ordinance in greater detail, just so there's clarity moving forward?
Definitely.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, then we'll accept that work plan update. We'll go on to HH2, which is the, I'm sorry, what did you want? Would you like to give us an update?
You know what, I just have 3 quick updates from the last time.
Sure.
Good afternoon.
Good
Evening, Chair, everybody on the committee. James Pickett, Deputy Chief of Field Operations. Since the last time an update was made, which was June 5th of 2017, it's been 3 updates I would like to share with you real quick. If you, in your package, go to number 4, which is the Cook County Sheriff's Department CIT team training. That's the crisis intervention team. As of that last update, we now have 11 officers that have attended and are certified, and with the hopes of having more people certified in that. If you look at number 5 with Dr. Logan's training, that has been completed. June 20th was the first town hall meeting, and another one will be subsequently occurring. And if you go to, real quick, number 11, the body camera project, that has commenced of June 1st. We have started the training process. It's actually the pilot program. We have 9 officers and 2 supervisors that are fitted with the body cameras. And on July 24th, there was a presentation given by Deputy Chief Parrott and Commander Dugan that updated everybody on our progress. And that program is going pretty good, and we're hopefully by January 1st, everybody will be fitted with body cameras.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alderman Fleming.
Yeah, thank you, Commander Pickett. I do have one question. So when you mentioned number 5, the training with Dr. Logan is completed, does that mean he is at the end of his 2 year?
Well, that, as of last time, I think in the last update, all the training the segments weren't completed, so we finished that first segment, but it's ongoing.
Okay.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry if I misspoke.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to HH2, which is Equity and Empowerment Update. We have 4 people signed up to speak. Rebecca Mendoza, then Jasmine Jilton Konzaks, Carla Sutton, and Priscilla Giles.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Mendoza. I live at 2122 Ashland. And on July 28th, I was part of a Latino, or they referred to it as Latinx town hall meeting. It took place as a result of 2 previous meetings that were held. The initial one was held at the Evanston Public Library through Chicago Community Trust event called Open Table. At that event, there was at least maybe like 25 to 30 people present, all interested in Latino issues in Evanston. As a result of that, there was an intern there that suggested that there be some sort of town hall meeting to input on the equity and empowerment assessment that's taking place in the city of Evanston. So at the town hall meeting, which took place after the plan had already been put together, there was several different issues that came up as a result of the specialist being there to present to us. And I have to tell you that having lived in Evanston for 30 years, it's pretty frustrating to be asked to come to town hall meetings time after time after time without any real results, especially in the Latino community. Our needs have not changed very much, and they're very similar to very many different needs of people in the city of Evanston. They are employment. So we want jobs. We want jobs, and we want to be able to work in Evanston. A young lady shared at this town hall meeting, she's a 24-year-old, went through the Evanston school system. She went to 24 different places and wasn't employed at not one. So she resorts to Chicago to find employment. And I think that that's a sentiment that's shared within the Latino community, that in Evanston, you can't really get a job unless you have a family member who works for the city of Evanston being one of our major employers in the city. And just also, they're not really being a priority to the things that we've already told you that we need in the city. So one of the things that I asked the specialist was if research had been done on what's already been done through efforts of the city. And I wasn't very reassured that there was research done. So there's been very many different efforts that have been done through the city, and I would just implore you to revisit those as you're going through this equity and empowerment assessment. Again, our priorities haven't changed. So employment, affordable housing, and equal treatment. That's really what we ask for. I think that's what many of our community members are asking for. with reference to the actual assessment, it wasn't a very good turnout. So as a researcher, I would go back and do more research. You know, if you didn't have a very good turnout, you should continue researching and make sure that everyone's voices are heard. The equity assessment that was done by District 65 took 12 months. The one that was done here took approximately 6 months, and that's for the whole entire city. And as a specialist will tell you, there was a very limited amount of people that came and actually told what their interests were, all from a certain segment. I will say that there was about 30 people that did, of Latino descent, that did respond, and I would implore you to take those into consideration. And again, our needs haven't changed very much. Please consider us. We're a significant number in this community, and I'm just here to remind you that we're here and we're a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jasmine, are you here? There you are.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Jeren Gonzalez. I am an Evanstonian born and raised in the Second Ward, woo. And I'm also the Executive Director for Latino Resources. So I'm very involved, and I've always had a passion anyways. But I did want to also echo what Rebecca said. I was also at the Latinx Town Hall where we discussed the equity plan. I reviewed it. I've seen the most recent one as well. Very interesting, but I do want to note that at the meeting there were Spanish speakers who felt more comfortable reading the plan in Spanish, and unfortunately we're not. And it also doesn't give the opportunity to Spanish readers to actually be involved and voice their opinions because they can't read it to begin with, right? So I do want to I guess, recommend to publish it in Spanish. It would be a really great idea and a good opportunity for them to read it, especially because they are a part of our community and we are here. And I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for serving the city of Evanston.
Thank you. Carla Sutton and Priscilla Giles.
Good evening, members of the Human Services Committee. I'm Carl Sutton of 1821 Darrell Avenue, Evanston, Illinois. Equity for who? Empowerment for who? These are two questions of accountability in the community. We have already addressed issues of policing and housing, and in the past, you want to know why there's not been an effective reply from the community. The marginalization that we have had from coming to these meetings has led to a certain apathy where community members have led to the questioning and the credibility and the sincerity of bringing our issues to you to have any resolution. I would appreciate the equity coordinator evaluating and addressing any concerns that adversely affect our citizens. I refrain from any judgment at this time until I see the final proposal. How will it prioritize our concerns? Who will enforce any incidents of inappropriate behavior of law enforcement officers? How can we expect developers to address our shortages of available housing units in our community? As we approach this issue, as we approach equity and empowerment, is it equity, empowerment, or further hypocrisy?
Thank you.
Priscilla Giles. I was gifted with some half-dead flowers this spring, and I don't know why I planted them when they were already brown, but I planted them just to see if they would grow. And then I came to the city council meeting and I heard about the flowers and the price that was being spent for flowers on corners, and I'm not against beauty, but I think if people had jobs, they could make their own beauty. I just feel like the amount of money that was spent could have employed many more people than are being employed. There's no reason why they can't be employed, and there's no desire, it seems, for people to be employed. If we're going to have equity, we must have jobs, and then we can take care of our own selves. That's what we were doing before we had this new program. The equity survey that came about, I haven't seen any more than I said before the last meeting. We had someone come and bring surveys. I did not see them in any place. I didn't see any other place, and not any left at the place where they were given out. We need equity to be really true. We need to know that we can be voiced, our voices can be heard, and that something is going to be done about it. Flowers are beautiful, but they don't pay the rent.
Thank you very much. Was there anyone else who is here tonight who wants to speak on HH2? Okay, well then we'll turn it over to staff and discussion from council.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Enid Marie Sanchez, and I'm the ICMA Fellow for the City of Evanston. And today I'm going to talk to you about the survey report that came out from the equity survey. So I'm going to run you through the background, and then I'm going to talk to you about some of the results, the key findings, and some recommendations we came up with. So just to give you some background, this survey was designed in 2014, and we used the same survey. At the time, we got 347 responses, and we only added 2 questions this time. We added, do you have a disability, and what's your sexual orientation? This time, the survey was open for about 2 weeks, and 1,000 paper-based surveys were sent to city facilities, and we collected a total of 800 responses. So just for you to keep in mind, most of the responses came from online sources. 100 of them came from paper-based, and a total of 3 surveys were filled out in Spanish. So just again, so you keep in mind, most of the responses came from online sources, and it was completely voluntary. So again, most of the people that fill it out went to the website and knew that the survey was available. So we were not really reaching out to everyone in the community. It was mostly the people that were interested. So the average person that completed the survey in 2014 did not change in 2017. Most people that fill out the survey were considered or self-identified as white or Caucasian. Most of the responders were female, and most of them made household incomes of over $100,000. So just keep that in mind as we are going to discuss the data. So most of the people that fill out this survey this year have lived in Evanston for more than 30 years. So about 30% of people have lived in Evanston for 30 years. And then most people do not have a disability that fill out the survey. So one of the things that came up was, when you think about the word different, what do you think about? And for most people, that was race. That was about 44% of the respondents. And then if you combine ethnicity and race, which are kind of similar and often are paired, that's over 60% of people saying this is what we think of. In terms of the third largest category, or the second, if you don't combine them, it's other. So we created this cloud with the words that came up. So a lot of times the word that came up was socioeconomic or income, something based on salary or wages. And also political. Some people talk about being a conservative in Evanston. That's different. Other people talk about having disabilities, and some people talk about immigration status. So that's another of the questions. So most people have not contacted their alderman in the past year from our sample. So about 57% of people said they haven't, and 42% said they have. So the next question was, do you think Evanston is a good place to live for immigrants, racial ethnic minorities, people with disabilities, LGBTQ, family with children under 18, youth and young adults, singles, and senior citizens? For the most part, for all the questions, people agree that it's a good place for all of those categories. And that was primarily what we saw in there. What we did after that is break down some of the questions by race and by income because we were interested in knowing if there's any differences. So the first question that we looked at was attended city council, and most people that filled out the survey, 788, 70% did not attend the city council last year. So then we look at that 30% and wanted to understand whether they were female, male, what race, what income levels. And if you look at the bottom chart, you can see that there was a disparity. So out of the 231 people that said they attended city council, 74% were female and 26% were male. But then we adjust that to the number of females that we had in our sample. And then we get that only 28% of the females in the sample participated in city council, compared to 37% of males. Then we looked at income level. So if you look at the income brackets and you look at the percentage that is the highest on the first column, you get that 49% of the people that attended city council last year that responded to our survey made incomes over $100,000. But when we adjust it to the group, so every income bracket and we divide it by the total, we get that the percentages are pretty similar no matter what their income levels were. The highest is actually $30,000 to $39,000 a year, the participation rate. Then we do race. I divided it by the race. So we have 229 people that said that they attended city council, but also gave us their race or self-identified. So out of that total, we have that 61% of them were white or Caucasian. Then we have 29% black, and that's the line in red that you can see. Then 5% Hispanic and 2% Asian. But then when we adjust it, we can see that the group with the highest participation rate is African Americans with a 44%. And then you can see the other groups are at 20, 27, 26%. Then the second question that we broke down like that was have you participated in community events? And most of the people that responded to this question have participated in a community event last year. And again, we did it by income, and it was almost the same result as attended city council. The income categories do not really make a difference. If you look at the sample overall, it seems like more people are participating that are over 100,000, but that's just because they're more, not because it's the group. Then we look at race. Same thing. It seems like if you see the overall, which is the red column, most of the people that participated were white at 68%, and it kind of decreases. You see 22% African American or black, Hispanic or Latinos are at 6%. Then when we adjust it to the population that is that specific group, you can see that the highest participation rate is still between the black and African Americans in our sample at a 97%. So in conclusion, and after looking at this data, some of the things that we need to keep in mind is that there's some groups that we're not reaching out. The people that don't have computers, or the people that might not read English. So if you got the link, you would go to the survey and fill it out. The other thing that we understand is that we need better data. We need to do a better job reaching out to the population if we really want to understand what their needs are. Then we need to add questions about accessing city services. In the survey, there were not so many questions about accessing city services. It was mostly about how people feel, and that was mainly because there was a comparison baseline with 2014, but we need better information about accessing city services. And then what we would suggest is doing a random sampling, so everyone in Evanston would get an equal chance to get selected, and we can mail out the surveys and do it in Spanish and English, so people that don't speak English can be able to fill it out in Spanish. So that's the survey report. Do you have any questions?
Okay, Alderman Fleming.
So thank you for having that available tonight. I know last time it wasn't here. So my questions are, and you touched on this, that you're going to add some more questions. You're going to mail it out to a random sample of people. And I guess my concern is that then how is that going to be used? how can this data be useful, right? So like what we have now is how people feel, which I've told Dr. Ephraim from city council standpoint, we can do nothing with. Just that's random, and how you feel is how you feel, and that's not something I'm making decisions on from here. So even with the new questions, I guess my suggestion would be, when you look at the barriers and challenges for accessing city services, that is where we spend our time, because that is what we can do from our seat. But even that, we know is going to be limited, because you mail them out, and it's by choice if people return them. So if we get, say, 200 back and they're all over the map, it still doesn't necessarily provide us with direction. So I appreciate the survey, but I guess my concern is I don't want us to spend a lot of time and resources on the survey, because I think from what Ms. Mendoza said, and probably other people here, the city and other organizations have done a lot of talking and gathering of information about people's experience. And so I think we can start building on some of that at the same time that we are relaunching this survey.
So one thing that you mentioned, so if we randomize and we mail it out to people, we would be able to get a sample that could give us a generalization about the city, not just the people that have the highest participation rate, which is the people that we're getting in the surveys. And to better provide services to people, we want to hear from those that we're not hearing. And if we send it to somebody that's not being asked now what are their challenges or issues, we might be better equipped to deal with those. So that I see a value for asking the questions. And then in terms of the survey design, I agree with you. This survey had a lot of questions about how you feel, whether you think that Evanston is a good place to live. But in reality, we need to worry about how you access government services, and do you need more translations? Do you don't? What else can we do? So I think more questions should be asked about those topics.
Right, and I mean, even given that you're going to mail them out, which I think is great to random people, we don't know that they're going to return them. So I think we have to be prepared for if we get a small sample size back. I don't want us, I guess, to get down this road of we're just going to keep doing surveys, or we're going to keep having conversations. I want us to get to the implementation part, which I know we're going to get to, but those are my thoughts on the survey.
Sure.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
I don't know that I'm saying anything different than Alderman Fleming, but just another survey, another town hall, I just am not in support of that. I think that the resident was very clear, and I agree that we know what our needs are in the community. They have not changed in a real long time. And I think when you see such low participation in certain communities, it's because those particular communities have, in a way, lost hope. We're going to continue to talk about it. Like, at this point, I really think that we should be in action plan mode. I don't think we can gather anything new. I don't think a random survey is what we need right now. We are in crisis in some communities, in some areas. And so I hope that we would start working on an action plan.
I think that we would essentially agree with that. There has been a call from the community and in some sense from city council members to make sure that we have the data that we need. But I am, and I thank Anith for being able to do this and to be able to interpret the data and all of that, because for me it kind of goes over my head. And I do think that we need to move into action. We take our direction from you. So if the conversation needs to continue about the survey, or if you want us to move on, part of what we found from the survey was simply what we all know and what we all see is we're not reaching the appropriate people, we're not reaching all people, and we're kind of going in circles. The next survey, should we proceed with that, would be much more data oriented. As Anith said, it completely takes out what the feelings are and what the thoughts are, but provides us with data. But again, it's really, we'll take our direction from you.
Okay. Where do you?
Are we giving direction now on the survey?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're giving direction.
I would recommend that we don't have any more surveys, that we move into action.
And I also would recommend that we skip the next survey.
All right. Alderman Braithwaite, do you want to weigh in? Okay. Okay. Alderman Ravel, did you?
Just that we could always later decide to do a survey to specifically focus on whether the city is providing the services that its residents need, but we could move now into action and fill in later if we actually need some more data.
Okay. This is staying at committee. And the plan is going to change a little bit if we're not going to do another survey. But you're to be back here in October. So we're being asked tonight to not only review with the work plan, but direct staff to begin tasks in the work plan. Now, is it that does the committee want to continue to receive community feedback? Do you not want to go ahead and do that? Do you want the committee to give direction rather than seeking further community feedback? Okay, Alderman Fleming, I'm sorry, I didn't see your light.
So I've read the updated plan, so here are my thoughts. I think that particularly because you mentioned focusing on race, the Ms. Mendoza, who I'm assuming is representing the entire Latino community tonight. I'm just joking. And I can say, I'm representing some African American people and others. I mean, I speak to some people who are in the disability population in our city, and I think that people feel a little bit talked out in Evanston. And so one of your action plans is to move forward with, sorry, I'm trying to find it. I think there were identifying some African American and Latino community leaders to lead some town halls.
Correct.
So if we're not going to have a discussion, then I would not support that. I have some concerns about who would be picking them, who would be training them, what exactly they're leading for. If they're going to be representing kind of this offshoot of the city, I think we have to be very, very careful about that, because we don't want people out leading discussions that maybe go a little bit further and folks can leave there feeling like the city via this, community member made some promises. So I would think that we should not move forward with that. At this point, I think, like Alderman Ravel said, that's something that maybe as we get the ball rolling, we can talk about later. But there's the YMCA and other organizations that are leading some community discussion already, and I think that they're, if you're in connection with them, you can gauge from them some topics that are coming up. So that is one thing that I would say I don't think we should move forward on at this point.
And if I can offer some clarification, it may or may not help. One of the things that we have consistently found, both at the town hall meetings and through the survey, as you saw the results, is that we are simply not reaching people of color. We're just not. And so part of convening these leaders in those communities to help us access those communities so that we can get fuller participation. But that's become the overall issue, is how do we reach? Anith has been here a year and has worked for a year very diligently to try to reach out to the Latino community with very little results. And when we did have the town hall meeting on Friday, we were very fortunate that the community came out. But one of the things that, one of the frustrations of that community on Friday was, but you all didn't consult us. Nobody thought about us. Well, we've made significant efforts to reach out to these populations with very little results. And so it was our hope that by reaching out, by these leaders coming forward and then being our arms out into the community. So it would simply be them sort of collecting data on behalf of their community. But it's going to continue to be a struggle regardless of however we move forward. But I just want to, sort of be on record as saying that we're really struggling to reach these populations, and it's important to us that we hear their voices, because as you can see, we have a lot of people speaking on the behalf of that community, but how do we access the community?
Well, I guess I would respectfully push back and say, what are we trying to get from the community? If people probably in this room can tell you some of the barriers or challenges or experiences with the city as a government, I I'm not sure, I guess if you can flesh out more what you are trying to get. People, I don't feel like, are rushing to town halls of any sort
Right.
to share their experience if there is no follow through on the person who's hosting. So I think if people feel a little bit burned out of coming to share and discuss and whatever, and there's no action, then what is their motivation, like Alderman Simmons said, for coming back to then share, right? So I think we have to be really clear what we're looking for people. Just to say we're going to engage the Latino community for the sake of engagement, I don't think it's really what I envision for equity and empowerment. So if we want to engage them in a more tangible way that's saying, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we think it's going to be beneficial, then we can do that later down the line once we've got the ball rolling and some action items. But, just the idea of engagement in town halls and talking for the sake of, it gets exhausting. And in the community of Evanston, I think people will tell you that has been somewhat of their experience. And so when Alderman Simmons mentions kind of being in crisis mode, I think people they have some real needs. And so to ask them to come to a meeting on a Saturday or a Monday night or whatever it is not high on their priority list if they're trying to pay their tax bill or whatever their experience is. So I understand about not meeting them, but I also have had experience where people do come out when you're really talking about something and offering something. They don't just come out just for the sake of coming out.
Right.
Alderman Ruth Simmons?
We talked about, and you mentioned that you were going to be reaching out to the faith community to get more participation. So that still is an option. And I know that probably had 4 ward meetings this year, and that would be like another great place to connect. So I don't think that you should completely abandon the idea of identifying leaders to get the information that you need from the populations that are not being represented, but in a more strategic way makes more sense.
Are you ready for that?
I am ready for that.
So as part of the Welcoming City ordinance, Skokie contacted us, and they were doing a Skokie Cares campaign, and we wanted to really figure out how we could put action behind the words and really help citizens more broadly think about what it means. And so the committee produce these "All People Are Welcome" City of Evanston signs, which we would like to, this is a, what do you call that, a mock-up? This is a mock-up. So it'll be slightly thicker and a little bit larger, but to have these placed on all city buildings, I think the police department and the city buildings, as a way to sort of launch this campaign that all people are welcome, to potentially have these created so that you could purchase them or get them from the city to place in your windows or on your cars. But again, as a way of letting the community know that we are a welcoming city community. The cost of those would be $110 per sign. We're talking about producing 11 signs. So I think if in your memo it says about $1,250 total.
I think that's a really good way of branding thinking, at least kind of getting heads around maybe a new approach to what we're trying to elicit and what we're trying to talk about. I absolutely agree. I mean, that we talk things in Evanston, we keep talking. I mean, it's Evanston. It's a wonderful thing, but it does mean that people become exhausted.
Yep.
So I think it's incumbent on us to tell and explain to people why this is different,
Yep.
why what we're doing is different,
Yeah.
and we have to take the leadership role on that. As simple and as sort of, commonplace as branding is, it's a visual is a way of saying, this is a different program we're trying to do here. This is a different discussion that we're trying to have. And as I've said in previous meetings, this is not an easy discussion. It's not a fast discussion. It's a discussion that's going to go on for years and years and years. But we do have to engage people and get them to become involved. But then it's incumbent on us to prove that their involvement was valuable.
Yeah.
And that's the challenge for us, and I'm certainly willing to accept that challenge, and I'm frankly excited about it.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
it's a nice sign. Okay, I'm skipping over 3 for a second and going to the easy one, which is the sign. I like the sign. How does the rest of the committee feel about the sign?
I like the sign.
Okay, everybody good? Sign is good. All right. So we're going to go back to,
I'm late. I'm a late thinker.
Okay, that's okay.
Sorry. So the sign.
Okay.
So you're going to purchase these. They're going to go on the city buildings, and I guess, what do I do next? Right. So I see the sign.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, right. So I'm trying. If you see the thread here, I'm trying to push us past the gesture.
And that's
the gesture is a good place, right? But I have a Black Lives Matter sign, and frequently people say, "What does that mean?" Right? So what am I telling them when they see the sign?
So this is part, and you're exactly right. I mean, that's what we struggled with, was how do we not just make a sign? So we went against putting the yard sign and thinking about, more consciously about helping people who are entering into city properties to understand that this is an open and welcoming facility. No matter how I come in. But beyond that that's exactly right. We want to brand this as a campaign to talk about and to make sure that we're embedding into our businesses what it means to be welcoming. For example, customer service, whether it's coming from the city or whether it's coming from the business community, making sure that we are thinking about what it means to be welcoming. What does it mean when an immigrant comes in, they don't speak any English at all, nor do they speak Spanish, and some sense of what it means to be a welcoming committee. So the idea behind this is a branding of a campaign to help our residents and our staff understand we want to go beyond the words.
Okay. So you'll be working with the staff to communicate that?
Yes, correctly. So we have a team, an interdepartmental team who's actually worked on this. Not my idea. I'm not an artist, but let me say that they will be made in-house. But yes, there is a team, including community engagement, to build this brand and to build what it means to have this conversation. And so we were brainstorming all kinds of ideas about how we could continue this. But first, we wanted to make sure we could launch it.
Okay.
And I guess I would say that I would love to see some decals or something that we could, if people who had a store or business, whatever, or wanted to put on their car or their front door, that they could have access to those. I think it's a lovely thing.
Good idea.
So we've tossed around this idea a couple of different ways. We had several designs, and one design had multiple languages on it. One had Spanish, English, and so the struggle is constantly how do we attend to the entirety of the community. I think we're open to whatever you think we ought to be doing with it.
I will share a little personal note here. When my mother came to Evanston as a young child to go to public school, there were 33 foreign languages spoken in Evanston grammar schools, and all of them were taught. So there were teachers, at least one teacher that could speak each language. So that lots of languages. So I think that's a challenge. I'm not sure how many languages we're speaking in Evanston today, but I'm sure there are a lot.
Well, and that is the challenge for us. I mean, part of what it addresses in the plan proposal is we need to review and really establish a language access policy. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? When do we translate? What languages do we translate into? I mean, there are those issues, and part of our concern as we were putting all of these different languages on there was, what if we leave somebody out? What if it's not? I mean, so that was the real struggle, which is how we ended up sort of with this simplistic, just all people are welcome. But as I said, this only hammers home the need for this language access policy.
And I'm glad you're thinking about that.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Well, if you can squeeze Spanish on there, I'm not a designer either, but I mean, we just heard from the community that we had an entire Latinx meeting with no Spanish materials, which was a huge loss because people came out on a Friday night but couldn't read the materials. So I think if we could figure out how to get Spanish on the sign, then that would be helpful. Or get 2 signs, or I don't know what you do.
Okay.
Okay, I think you've gotten direction on the sign, so that's good. So let's go back to item 3, which was recommend to the Rules Committee the creation of the Equity and Empowerment Commission.
Yep.
So comments from the committee. Alderman Ravel.
My mic doesn't seem to be working. So I serve on the Housing, Homelessness, and Human Relations Commission, which, as you recall, we recently merged Human Relations with Housing and Homelessness. And we have lengthy discussions, and we are totally consumed with trying to solve affordable housing problems. So there's not really an opportunity to do justice to the human relations component, and also now that we're making such a priority of the equity and empowerment initiative, it makes really good sense, I think, for that to be a separate commission and to remove the human relations piece from the Housing and Homelessness Commission.
Okay. Everybody feel good about that?
Yeah.
Yes. Alderman Fleming, Alderman Ruth Simmons, Alderman Braithwaite, all of you lit up at the same time.
Well, I can defer because I've spoken a lot, so.
Alderman
You know what, I was just going to say, maybe you should just turn that into a motion. It was brought to us at the last meeting. I attended the same meeting. I support it, so let's turn it into a motion that we can then pass along to our Rules Committee.
So, yes, so I move that this committee recommend to the Rules Committee that we create an Equity and Empowerment Commission.
Okay, second. Yeah,
okay.
Second. Can you do an amendment? Because I think first you want to separate the two. Well, I think, yeah.
Make it all part. I mean, it would be, and then to, how would I say this? Because I think the Housing and Homelessness Commission is going to be coming with their own repurposed proposal for their commission.
So my question, I guess my question, Alderman Rell, is, so the first part of this is separating housing and human relations. My second part of the question would you want to combine the equity work with the current human relations committee that would then be, or are we talking 3 separate committees? That's where I'm a little.
No, we're not. No, we're not talking about a separate human relations commission. Okay. We're talking about Housing and Homelessness Commission and an Equity and Empowerment Commission.
Right. Okay.
So then you're talking about dissolving the Human Relations Commission or changing the name of that? I guess this is a Rules Committee discussion, I think.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Just for clarification, the Human Relations Commission was technically dissolved last year, and the responsibilities was rolled into the Housing and Homelessness Commission, and we just added Human Relations because they didn't want to lose the name. Mm-hmm. So it'd just be a rules change, a change from the Rules Committee to just remove Human Relations responsibilities from Housing and Homelessness Commission, and then just keep the Human Relations Commission dissolved.
Right.
Yeah, I think all we really need to do here is just to recommend to the Rules Committee the creation of the Equity and Empowerment Commission. That's all we need to do. And the Rules Committee will sort all that out.
All right, so I have a question.
With
Well, I have a question.
Yes.
So will it be in the Rules Committee that we will flesh out further what this commission is doing?
Yes, and I've made some recommendations in the proposal, but I believe so, that's where that all gets fleshed out in full proposal.
Okay, yeah, because I see your proposed, mission here, and I think for me, it takes me a little bit further back to where we were with the survey, where people, are fostering relationships and people are, engaging and what have you. And I guess I would like to see that a little bit clearer, right? So I see a couple sentences in here that are more like a vision statement, but like the practicality of the board, what their responsibilities are. I guess I don't want this to be a board that is moving forward more in this town hall. How do you feel? Not that those things are not valid, but we can't, if they come, this commission comes to the council with a proposal about how people feel.
Right.
We can't do anything.
Agreed.
So I would really like you to, before we go, at rules or whenever we make this decision, to flush that out. And then also when I think of this 9 people who are going to be appointed by the mayor, and you say have some experience or interest in diversity and inclusion and social justice, that we really think a lot about that. And so I'm thinking more of what the mayor did with the police review or Citizens Police Review Board or whatever he's got going now, and that there were some ways that we really tried to go after certain people to be on this. I guess I don't really want this to be a committee, if I have my say, of kind of the regular people in this field, because they already have a space they're working and already have a voice. And so when you talk about really engaging populations who maybe are not participating now, this would be a great place for them, and not for the same people who are already meeting in some kind of other coordinated group effort. So I would like to see a little bit more of that and some direction given, so that when our mayor is looking at who to bring on, there's some real clarity, because a lot of people will tell you they have an interest in diversity. And that could mean very much that they want to keep busing students from the 5th ward to the first ward for school. So I think we need to be really clear about what we mean, and some more language from me about equity, because I think we can confuse the two, diversity and equity. And right now, your job is to focus on equity.
Yep. And we will be engaging legal. So, I mean, I'm going to.
Right. No, for sure. But I just, as we're going out and moving forward, and I really appreciate some of the history of the Human Relations Commission, because they really did a lot of great work. And so I would, again, suggest to you to look at what the Human Relations Commission did and some of that work that's gone away that might be able to be rolled back into what you're relaunching.
Okay.
And Alderman Fleming, that will all be part of the discussion at rules too, but it's important to say it here tonight. I will make one correction, and that's you can't bus anyone to a school in the 1st ward, because there aren't any schools in the 1st ward. So, they can come to my house. Alderman Braithwaite.
Thank you, Alderman Fisk. And just to share, Alderman Fleming, the nice thing is about all the selection on our committees is that aldermen absolutely have a say in that. I would hope you and others will make recommendations for this committee. And in addition to that, as we all know, that if there's a name or a reason for someone not to serve, or we have concerns, that we have a way of voicing those as well.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion that has been seconded. We're going to vote on that now. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak in advance of that? Okay, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? One opposed. Okay. Okay, I think we've done all of our tasks here.
I think there's another.
Cannabis.
Oh, right. I mean all of our tasks as far as the equity and empowerment.
Can I ask for clarification on number 2?
Yes.
So if I'm understanding correctly, we are going to scratch the convening the African American and Latinx leaders, and not go back out for more community comment?
My recollection from what Alderman Fleming was saying was that, and Alderman Ruth Simmons, was that there is a way to engage people without holding the
Right. I just want to be clear that we're in general. Yes, we will definitely engage them. But I'm saying to deal with that issue, if I'm understanding, we're going to take that out of this plan.
No. No, it's just,
No.
it's different. It's
The
not
town halls.
It's not the town halls.
Gotcha.
You're going out and actually targeting groups and opportunities, ward meetings, religious organizations, finding ways to identify groups that are not, where people do not have to come out to town halls. You're actually going.
So I think it's more going to them.
Right.
So doing the outreach versus the convening.
Clear. And so, and then so we're not going back out till October for more community feedback?
No, you're getting community feedback. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. You're getting community feedback now and bringing it back to us in October.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we said no survey.
Correct.
Yeah.
But can I ask another question, because I just want to, so number one, or maybe it's not, number two, so begin the August to October task in the work plan?
Yes.
So one of the tasks in the work plan is also part Roman numeral 2 about the equity training?
Yes.
So is that, just so I make sure I have my dates right, so in September you are going to make a plan and the training is going to start in October?
For the equity training, number 2, so the idea is, it's 2B, develop a comprehensive training plan. So in October, we would begin to develop, so this is laying out a complete comprehensive training program and then going out to develop that plan, which we would begin to implement in January.
Okay, but before we see you again in October, you are doing the planning session with senior leadership.
That's correct.
That's part A.
If that's your desire tonight. But yes, that would be what we're requesting.
But no actual training is going on. I guess what I'm trying to get to is I would like to understand what training you're doing before we start.
So the two that are critical to us is, in all fairness, I don't think we can start training staff until we get council trained. And so we're at this point, we have 2 proposed dates, but we have to check with you all to see, with City Council, see if those dates are going to work in October. But in September, it is to begin to convene the senior leadership to talk about vision, where we're going, where we're headed, so that once then the council is trained, then we can move into training staff and we all have a clear understanding of where we're going.
Okay. And then my other one is in that same section, so
Yes.
part C.
Yes.
Just so I'm clear, the USDN program.
Yes.
You're starting that now and completing the first level in October.
Well, and again, yes. So let me give a little bit of history to this.
Just because we're having this time where you're
Sure.
not going to be here, so if you come back in October, I would like for myself to know what has been done before you come back.
So one of the things that besides having a comprehensive staff training program, we're also going to have to do individualized departments. So right now we're working with the police department is doing training that's unique to them. That's what's happening with the sustainability piece. It really is a piece that's unique to sustainability that we've been invited, that Kumar invited me to sit in on. And so it is by no means a part of the training package for the whole staff. It is directed at sustainability. And the USDN, part of what they're doing is they offer, it's a professional organization, and so they offer to their membership different projects. And this was one that Kumar thought would be helpful because it specifically would identify a sustainability project that they could put their heads around and apply an equity lens to. So that's very narrowly focused. We're going to be narrowly focusing on lots of departments. One of the things we're doing right now is we've put together a budget equity lens tool. And so, that's very specific to budgeting. And so, there will be lots of training to various departments that does not impact our overall goal for comprehensive training for the entire staff. And so that program, they set the, Alderman, they set the, they sort of have these guidelines. They're trying to complete their projects, I think, by the end of the year, because ultimately that's tied to a funding source, so that for those projects that are winning projects in sustainability, they can then go on to apply for a source of funds specific to sustainability.
Okay. And then my last question for right now will be, has there been a discussion with the staff engagement and the leadership and the training and all that? Will that be mandatory for our staff, or is this optional training?
No, absolutely mandatory.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're going to go on to, we have no items for communication.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, we do.
I don't know if this is appropriate for right now, but when we, just seeing on page 11 of our packet, when we, in terms of the welcoming communities sign, made me focus on the letter that I think we all received on the council about the need for some amendments to our welcoming city ordinance, and I didn't know whether this was maybe the appropriate place for us to talk about that and try to move that forward.
I could probably give an update, which might be helpful. So I've met with
Okay.
Mikel Fonda and
Okay.
4 other members of the community who put forth a couple of changes to our current amendment. Right now, the chief is reviewing those changes, and there's one in particular that's a sticky point that he's waiting to see what the state does with their legislation before getting back to the group. So it's on the table and currently in a holding pattern until the state makes up its mind on a few key issues. So I think when he gets back on vacation, we should be in a position to provide an update to the committee.
And since this is not on our agenda, I feel hesitant to discuss it further.
Madam Chair, just point of clarification. Alderman Ravel, what are you specifically looking for additional information on that?
No, I was just noticing, because we were talking about the welcome sign and the welcoming city ordinance, I thought, I just had this question about when were we, as a city council, going to be talking about this possible need for some changes to the ordinance.
Yeah.
But Peter, Alderman Braithwaite has explained where we are with that process.
Okay. Yes. Bennett.
I want to just make a brief comment. One of my concerns about the survey, it dealt more with the specifics of the groups being surveyed rather than the purpose of equity. In other words, everybody knows who's lived here for 2 weeks what the issues are. And there was no discussion about the issues. Our city is white and black. Our schools are white and black. They're not integrated in a real way. It's been changed, of course. But if you go to a community that's all white on the north side, it's been that way ever since I was here almost. And so I'm saying that if we talk about equity, we have to deal with the real issues, which is how do people really learn to live together, not apart, not separately, how people learn to appreciate each other, not denigrate, and as the story earlier about arresting the children. So there's a need to really deal with issues rather than dance. It's like a mix and hat dance. To dance around the hat, and that's not what we're trying to do, I hope. I hope we're really trying to change things. I think we have to really refocus on what the real issues are, because we know what they are, and deal with them and study them and change them. And a plan of action, not just some kind of survey where you get more information. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go down to HH3, Evanston Police Quarterly Report on Cannabis for the second. What?
I said it's very cloudy in the second ward.
Okay. Who's, okay, do we have a presentation? Is there anyone? Presentation. We're just accepting the report. Okay.
So for the members of the committee, at our last Human Services term, I think it was Alderman Miller that asked for regularly quarterly reports just so we can keep track of the cannabis citations. So there's no real action for us to take other than to accept the report, and it's just to keep it.
Commander, did you want to?
No,
say anything?
No, there's no presentation.
Okay.
We're
happy to see you. So
yeah,
it's nice to have you
just
here.
a submission.
Okay.
If there's any questions about it, I'm just here to field questions about the report, but no presentation.
Okay. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We accept the report, I assume. Is there anyone who doesn't want to accept the report? All righty. We don't have executive session?
No.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, our next meeting is scheduled for September
It's going to be on September 7th, which is a Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken. Let me double check. They will not be on a regular Monday due to the holidays.
Okay. Oh.
So, yeah, it's going to be Wednesday, September 6th at 6 p.m.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. September 6th.
Okay, so Wednesday, September 6th, the day after the first ward meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everyone, for coming and for your comments as well.